Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. And we want to welcome you to this Tuesday episode of Issues That Matters. This is 97.7 The Heat, and we're glad that you are joining us on this. John, we got to put on summer rain because we got to put on some summer rain today. Hope you're enjoying this Tuesday evening, and hope you've been enjoying your week thus far. This is Stephen Jackson. Calvin is on his way, and we're glad to have you here, joining us, listening in. There is a lot. This is probably one of the most active news cycle I've seen in quite a while, and so the last 72 hours has been a whirlwind of news, and so we want to open it up, and we'll be talking about a lot of things that have unfolded nationally and locally in the news. And so we thank you for joining us. We always like to start the show out by thanking Mr. Johnny Antoine, who is the station owner, producer, executive. When I walked in, he was vacuuming something. The other day he was somewhere cooking something. So man, he does it all over here at the studio, man. He opens this platform up to the community. He opens this platform up globally, because you can stream us online at 97.7theheat.com. And so we thank him for all that he does for our community and bringing this community platform, community radio, to be able to get the word out about what's going on in our community. So Johnny, we really, really, really want to thank you for your support of this community. If you are on the internet, please feel free to chime in via Facebook. You're more than happy to chime in via Facebook. We always welcome you to drop a comment on the Facebook Live or in the DM. So we'll get to your question there. Or if you want to call in, Calvin, what's that number that can call in?
That number
to?
is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459, and we will be glad to hear from you.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. And so, again, it's been a very active and invigorating news cycle, but we do have a couple of headlines to get to. One headline is that as you may have heard, is that following the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life, the Secret Service became under a lot of scrutiny. So congressional members of Congress, particularly in the House, held congressional hearings, and those congressional hearings did not go well for the now former Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheatle. She has now resigned in the wake of this assassination attempt. And what a lot of people will say is that, she was already under heavy scrutiny to step aside just moments after the assassination attempt. And Republicans are always looking for something, right?
Right.
They were already looking for a scapegoat even before the assassination attempt. They tried to impeach the Homeland Security, what's his name? They tried to impeach. I mean, anything that they could hang the hat on, they was trying to hang the hat on, right? Because they have control of the House. And but Kimberly Cheatle went to a congressional hearing, this supercharged congressional hearing, and she was emotionless. She lacked, she didn't show much sympathy. And so not only did it upset and anger Republicans, it upset and it angered Democrats alike, and they lit her up. And so the chorus became a bipartisan chorus for her to resign. And so today she submitted her resignation, saying that she didn't want to be a distraction to the department. And so that resignation was accepted today. So the Secret Service Director has stepped aside, and President Biden has said he will name an interim director in the coming days. You got any other headlines?
Yeah, on some state stuff that was interesting to me, we will remember that there was a hurricane a couple of years ago that was very significant in South Louisiana. And there were a number of our seniors and elderly that were trapped inside their living facilities. And it became an issue because a large owner of said facilities was blamed for not doing all he could to take care of some of the seniors. Well, there were a lot of calls. There were some lawsuits filed, and there were calls for him to be jailed. And I saw today where the decision was made that he was not going to serve any jail time. And so that was interesting. That's a major development. I don't know if it's so much of a factor of, him being who he is, or the idea that they want to keep him out of jail and keep his assets running so that those lawyers that want to file a lawsuit against him for the damages, because there are a number of seniors that passed away and were in a very tough, uncomfortable position during the time of the hurricane, and they believe that he was responsible. So that's what I saw with that as far as my headline.
Yeah. Good story on that one. Another one that another headline that we probably need to do, more digging into. But there was a shooting, an officer-involved shooting of Sonia Macy. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, Macy or Massey. Body cam footage was released out of Springfield, Illinois.
Right.
That showed a lady calling she called the police, and for some reason or another she ended up being fatally shot after she called. The situation escalated. Right. Unfortunately, and we have another person who has died at the hands of, I guess you could say, overzealous. I was about to say overzealous and aggressive policing here. She was only 36 years old. 36 years old.
In her own home.
And but those officers have been charged. Right. They have been charged with first-degree murder. Right. Fired. They have been fired. Right. And so let's hope that the criminal justice system will work in their favor, in favor of this young lady. It's unfortunate. I think Sean Patrick Grayson is the deputy that was in. He was actually indicted on 5 counts, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of aggravated battery with a firearm, and 1 count of official misconduct. He's been held in jail without any bail at this particular time. So, which is a stark improvement. Yes, because usually those folks they are released on their own recognizance. Yeah. They get to go home and enjoy their families, while other folks' lives have been just completely turned upside down. So, and Illinois is a fairly progressive state, right? Democratic governor, Democratic legislature, I believe. Yes. So Pritzker, who is in the running, we'll get to later as a vice presidential vetting candidate, but J.B. Pritzker. Yes. But let's just hope that relief. And send prayers to that family. Again, 36 years old. Yep. She called the police, and now she's dead. She was calling to be protected, and ended up being harmed. So, got anything else? No, that's all I have. So let's go to a quick break. You're listening to 97.7 The Heat, WKSH. We play what we want to play and say what we want to say. Stick with us on the other side of the break. We're gonna light up the phone lines because we want to hear from you. Take care.
Brothers and sisters, let me have your ear. I want to tell you a story about my life. Oh, I'm so in love. Oh, listen if you don't mind. She's got 2 kids, almost grown. Soon they'll be out to have families of their own. I try to help raise them the very best I can. I want her son to grow up and be a real man. I've been with their mother ever since high school. Hard times, Lord, we sure had a few. But I still love this woman the same way that I did years ago. And that's why I refuse to let her go. Lord, I love this woman. I one time we would always be. Then we decided there was more of the world to see. Went separate ways and tried to move on. Didn't know that our destiny would lead us back home. She married a man with a few issues of his own. It didn't work out for her because he treated her so wrong. As a victim of domestic violence, she divorced and moved on down the line. But everything in my life is going fine. Lord, I love this woman. I love her with all my mind. I really love this woman, but I'm not gonna leave no way. Some say raising two homes is hard to do, but when you want something bad enough, you do what you gotta do. They say it's wrong for a married.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
And we are back. Again, we thank you for joining us here. We hope that you are enjoying your Tuesday afternoon. A little summer rain. We've got rain in the forecast for the most of this week, I believe. I can tell you I love it because I don't have to worry about turning on the sprinklers. I think with this round of rain, it probably should keep the grass green until the end of August, maybe.
Gotcha.
At this time last year, the grass was dead.
Yeah.
The heat had popped off and
It was hot.
it was hot. And
For
so
sure.
I'm always thankful for a little summer rain. Summer rain.
Yeah.
Whisper some. I need to learn the words.
Summer breeze.
Summer, see?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Isley Brothers.
Oh, no, that's Summer Breeze. I'm talking about Summer Rain, Carl Thomas.
Oh, Summer Rain, Carl Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about Summer Rain.
Oh yeah, that's Mr. That's Mr. Sweater
yeah.
looking out the window in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. 90s
Yeah.
R&B. I got you.
So, but we're thankful for the rain.
Yes.
We are thankful for the rain.
Yes.
It's been a lot going on.
Whole lot.
And it's time for us to kind of unpack this.
Yes.
And if you have some thoughts about it, please call in,
Yes.
share with us. What's that
Yes.
number again? 318.
318-779-0459. 318-779-0459. That's a aptly named hotline. We want to hear from you. Or again, as Stephen has said, if you are
Put some on Facebook.
watching on Johnny, well, it's not yet Johnny's internet, but it's gonna be. But if you're watching on Beyonce's internet, send us a chat, send us a message, and we will hear from you.
Or Mark Zuckerberg.
One or two, but we ain't.
So what you got?
Well, let's start at the top. This week, Sunday, we had a literal sea change in elective politics and in government. President Joe Biden decided to suspend his personal campaign and no longer seek a second term for the presidency of the United States. That is amazing in and of itself. It does not happen that often. I wasn't alive, but I know that in 1968, sitting President Lyndon Baines Johnson made the announcement that he would not seek nor would he accept his party's nomination for president going into the 1968 election, and it was a big deal. There was a lot of confusion, and that is the election. You had the tremendous convention in Chicago where it was splintered, and you wound up with a President Richard Nixon, who had been defeated maybe 8 years prior by President Kennedy and then Vice President Lyndon Johnson. So he was a sitting president who was somewhat popular, but was dealing with everything going on with Vietnam. And of course, you had the civil rights movement going on. And so he decided to step away and not run. For Joe Biden to decline to run for president It took a lot, I can imagine. This is a gentleman in President Biden who, for most of his adult life, had given it to public service, having been elected to the United States Senate. I don't think he was 35 years old. I think he was like 29, from Delaware. Took his oath of office from a hospital bed because his wife and daughter had been tragically killed in a car accident, and he was tending to his two sons. You've heard the story about how he took the train home every night, which he did, to be with his boys, and then continue to move forward. This is a gentleman who has a stellar career as a public servant, as a United States Senator, authored some very important legislation. He wound up getting the seniority to be the Senate president of the Judiciary Committee, and the Judicial Committee is a committee that vets and gets the first taste at all of the judges, all of the federal judges. So you can imagine over the years in the 80s, you had that whole, some of you don't remember, that whole controversy with Robert Bork, who was appointed by then President Ronald Reagan, and found out he had some things in his past, and his confirmation went down in flames. You will remember the whole Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill situation. He presided over that. And he ran for president on a number of occasions himself. He ran for president in 1987, going into 1988. His campaign stalled and failed. He pulled out. I want to say he ran for president again in 92, I believe. Was not successful, went back to the Senate. Ran for president in 2007, 2008 against Barack Obama and a number of other folks. Hillary Clinton was in that mix as well, was not successful. Was selected as the vice presidential running mate for then Senator Barack Obama, and of course the rest we know is history. He won. He was a substantial contributor to the Obama team. Many people felt like his moderation, him being a white male who had been there for quite a while, coming from the East Coast and having some gravitas with world leaders, having served in the Senate for so long and have distinguished himself as a consensus builder and being able to get things done, was the last push that President Obama needed to get across the line, and he served as a very willing partner with President Obama. Decided not to run for president in 2016, much to our chagrin. I do believe that had he campaigned and ran in 2016, he would have beaten Donald Trump, and so he did not. His son, Bo, was going through a cancer scenario where he was at the end of his life. Bo, having contracted cancer as part of his service to the United States military over in Iraq, those when they, did the Iran war and they were burning up all of the oil wells, a number of servicemen contracted different types of lung cancer because they had to breathe all of those fumes. And so he didn't run in 2016. He ran in 2020 and defeated Donald Trump. And so here you have a man who has given his life to public service, and he decided that for the good of the party and for the good of the country, it would be better for him to step back to stop Donald Trump. And so did some great things as president, had a very stellar list of accomplishments. We can talk about some of those, but for me, just the idea of someone who has served so selflessly to decline to campaign for the most powerful job on the planet and turn that in says a lot about that person's character that you have to respect. And so he stepped away, and now we have the scenario where Vice President Kamala Harris is moving forward to be going up from being vice president to be the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. So that's kind of what happened on Sunday, and it's been amazing to see how that whole thing unfolded. What are your thoughts on
Well, I
that?
think it's been I've had the privilege to be on several outlets over the past 72 hours. The day that it broke, I actually interrupted my Sunday to kind of be out there to speak on my thoughts. I think it's a different race. Clearly, the Trump campaign apparatus, they are scouring, trying to figure out how to respond.
Right.
They were dead set on a campaign against Joe Biden, and the only thing they were going to do was go out and question his mental fitness. They were prepared to go out and question his, just his fitness,
Right.
his competence, and those things. And they were going to make this about a person, and I don't quote this person all the time, but Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House, it always amazes me how smart these guys sound when they leave Congress. I mean, John Boehner,
Right.
all these guys, they just seem to just
And
get,
remarkably reasonable.
I mean, and
with
so
logic.
He was on Meet the Press, or he was doing an interview with Chuck Todd, I think, and Chuck Todd asked him, how does he see this campaign going? And he basically has said what I have been saying locally, is that this race is about independence. A Trump voter is not switching over to be a Kamala Harris voter. A Kamala Harris voter is not switching over to be a Donald Trump voter. That's just not going to happen. This race, for the large part, is determined, but what will be the deciding factor, well, I'm not going to say determined. The sides are locked in.
Right.
I'm not going to say it's determined. The sides are locked in.
Right.
And so each side knows where they're going to go. What's going to be the deciding factor is the swing states that have these high amount of independent voters, suburban voters. And when this race was up, anytime, what Kevin McCarthy said is, whoever the race is about, whatever person this race is about, is likely going to be the one to lose.
Right.
So if you make this race about the person, that's going to be the one that's likely going to lose. Now, he still felt that President Trump had an edge. I think the polling shows right now, if you just go by the polling, but what people always forget, right, with polling data is the base of Democrats are black voters. And it's not just black voters, older black voters.
Right.
And they're likely not showing up in the polls
Right.
in the best light.
Right.
They're probably sprinkled in some polls, but Trump voters are motivated. If you send them a poll, they're taking it.
Right.
You send a black person, an older black person, 60 and up a poll, they're not taking no poll.
Right.
It's not something. It's just not something that we do.
No.
And so I always say,
For in a lot of reasons, because they are from a generation
Right.
that the vote was so sacred to
Right.
them.
Absolutely.
They're not gonna pretend like they're gonna vote,
they're going to vote.
but they're not gonna tell you who I'm voting
Right.
for.
They're not doing
because these were the folks that got the dogs put on them,
Right.
and the water
They're
put
not
on them.
doing it.
They gonna vote now,
They're
but
not doing
I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah.
That's my business.
Right. And so they're not going to show up in a poll
Correct.
the way to Donald Trump
Mm-hmm.
or the liberal white vote.
Right.
And so I always say, give that Democrat or that black person, give them at least another 3 to 4, maybe sometimes even 5% on where you see they are. When you see a poll that says Donald Trump 48%, Kamala Harris 45%, add 5%, add
Right.
3%, add at least 3 on the low end, add 3% to that.
Right.
Because her chronic voters, black 60+ year old voters, are not showing up.
Right.
Then you add in the disgruntled, I don't like Donald Trump folks.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have something there. So I think it's a good race. I'm going to be very interested to see what the polls do over the next couple of days. I'll be watching it. As you know, I watch polls
Right.
all day, every day.
Right.
And so I'm going to be interested to see how this unfolds. It's going to be an interesting dynamic on both sides. It's
No,
gonna
I
be a
think
very
you're right.
interesting dynamic.
I think you're right. I think the Trump, what's interesting is how this race has unfolded from the beginning. Part of the reason why people on the Democratic Party, on the establishment, did not really want, well, we're not calling for Joe Biden not to run, because they knew, and the Biden folks knew, at the end of the day, Trump is going to be the nominee. So Biden was the anti-Trump guy, and the Biden folks knew, and so he knows that I'm running against Trump, I'm going to run it back, everything is fine. Well, you had a scenario where the Biden folks wanted to run against Trump, the Trump folks wanted to run against Biden.
Right.
And so you had this whole, you if you watch the television shows and the pundits, they talk about the double negatives that didn't want either one, but now you're forced with the choice. And so when President Biden had that not very good, dismal appearance, it made people afraid, because, to your point, you've got the Democratic side that's baked in, the Republican side that's baked in, but the question is, who are the independents are going to break for, right? Who are that suburban person going to vote for? Who is that what I call a country club Republican who does not believe in Donald Trump, who voted for Nikki Haley even though she was out of the race?
Right.
A third of them said, I don't want to support this Trump foolishness. Do you give them a place to stay? And one of the things about Joe Biden and him being a centrist gives that group a place to stay. One of his best friends was John McCain, another centrist Republican. So they had a place to go. Well, if he was shaky, then now it's like, well, where do I go? Where do I go? Well, by him exiting the race, that's gone. We're not talking about Joe Biden's age. We're not talking about him shuffling or his mental acuity. Now you've got a situation where the old man in the race is a Republican now.
Right.
I mean, because Kamala Harris is in her 50s, and Donald Trump is in his 70s, late 70s. So, I don't quote Nikki Haley at all, but one of the things that Nikki Haley said was, and I quote, the first party to drop their 80-year-old nominee is going to be the one to win. So it's going to be interesting, like you said, to see how the dynamic rate breaks. One of the things that we have learned about Donald Trump is just keep your phone on at night, and he's going to tell you exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah.
And when he loses his,
problem.
oh yeah, of course,
That's going to be his problem.
he tells you what he's thinking, and he don't hide it. And so he has been spinning over and over. We spent all this time and money running against Crazy Joe, and now he ain't the nominee. What are we gonna do? Well, nobody told you to do what you did. And I will give President Biden and his side and his handlers some credit when they made their decision to drop out of the race. They certainly were strategic, because Donald Trump, rather than get someone to moderate, and we're going to talk about the value of a running mate, rather than get someone to moderate Trump, which is what they did in 2016 with Mike Pence, they double down. They have Trump and Mini-Me, the mini Trumper.
A complete fool.
Oh man, that guy's
They
got
got
something.
a fool who can do the fool with them.
Yes, that they love. So all of this talk of after the quote unquote assassination, oh, he's gonna be more presidential, he's gonna try to unify the country. He went to Milwaukee, of course, and what was interesting, wasn't hardly nobody in Milwaukee. Their event was very poorly attended, by the way, but they tried to burn it to the ground, and that's what they got, And so now you have yourself locked into this
Very
position.
homogenous too.
Oh yeah, by homogenous we mean all white.
Yeah. I mean, you had a sprinkle of
You had
black.
a couple of Negroes and Amber Rose who Johnny thinks is not white. She says she. What does she say she is? What was that girl that went upside her head, Johnny? On the TV show. What's it, Jocelyn or whatever her name was?
Well, Chris Christie said, I don't know if I'm gonna let somebody with a tattoo on their forehead convince me. I wouldn't let somebody with a tattoo on their forehead. I didn't even know she had a tattoo on her forehead.
Yeah.
He said, I wouldn't let nobody with a tattoo on their forehead tell me who to pick for my president.
Well, there you go.
But they had her front and center.
Man, did they? Then they cut a rap video with some it was horrible too.
Yeah.
Sitting in
but
something we vote for Trump.
But they're catering to a younger crowd.
Right.
And again, I'm gonna go back to former speaker Kevin McCarthy. The Biden voter is a older, chronic voter.
Right.
What Trump is trying to appeal to, even with J.D. Vance, he's trying to appeal to a younger voter.
Right.
That's not stable.
Right.
That we often joke, and Calvin jokes all the time. If you have a concert going on,
hey, bro,
you have some,
football game.
Right. Football game. They subject to forget. Oh, what? Huh? Now, election day is a Tuesday.
Right.
Some of the people might have to work.
Right.
It's so much that you hang your hat on. And look, we're encouraging young people to go vote.
Yes.
Please go vote.
Yes.
But
traditional voting patterns are younger voters, unless they are supremely motivated and emotionally attached, do not vote as consistently as older voters. That's a fact.
They will vote in a presidential race.
They will.
That is historical.
They will. They will.
And they clock out after a presidential race.
Yes. Every 4 years they show up. And to your point, having that young vote is almost always a difference maker.
Right.
If there's a close election, you get the young folks out to push. I think I saw something where they said if the total vote is 50% or less, Trump wins. If it's closer to 60, Kamala wins. If it's close to 70, it's going to be an Obama-like route, because that means you got energy all over the place. And so I'm interested to see how it happens. Folks, if you are listening, you want to call and you got some questions or you got some comments, please, we want to hear from you. Our number is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459. We'd love to hear from you about how this thing is playing out thus far. One of the things that I'm encouraged with the way that the rollout has been, there's been a lot of energy immediately with Vice President Harris, Kamala Harris. Of course, a couple of nights ago, they had the Black Women's Call. 44,000 African-American females were on the call. They raised about $1 million some dollars. Last night, they had a call with African-American men, about 22,000 of us, and I do say us because I was on the phone call, so was Brother Jackson. And they raised what? Yeah. What, 300?
One point, I thought it was, you talking about the guys last night?
The guys last night.
They raised, I think, 1.5 or 1.6 million.
Okay. So in 2 days, she's gotten close to $3 million and a lot of positive energy from a demographic she's absolutely going to have enthusiastically behind her. So I'm enthused. I'm excited. She gave a speech today in Wisconsin. I think it was important for her to go to Wisconsin to speak, having followed Trump and their foolishness. And I think the speech was very well received, and she got energy from the crowd. I think she's going to do a great job. So, but it's just interesting, the whole energy, I'm interested to hear some of those pundits that said, okay, well, Joe is too old at 81. Okay, well, now Trump is 78. He's the old guy. Now, we know that's not going to go anywhere because it was all about trying to get Joe out. But be careful what you wish for, because, they got it. And now they have a problem because they don't know how to run against him.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's going to be interesting. And so I think, like I say, the polling data is going to be interesting. So let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And on the other side of this, we can talk about
running mates,
okay, and just, unpack some of those other things. You're listening to 97.7 The Heat. This is Issues That Matters. We'll be right back after this break.
outside rain, she keeps me home. Quiet conversation makes me warm, so warm. Sweet rain whispers me to sleep and wakes me up again. My rain, sometimes I swear I hear it call my name. I swear, my summer rain. Oh. In the middle of the night when I'm alone, I feel her kisses on me even when she's gone. Can't wait till she gets home. Hey, whispers me to sleep and wakes me up again. Oh, yeah. My name, my name. Oh, I don't mind if it rains. Let it rain on me. I don't mind. Yeah. Oh, let it rain, let it rain. Oh, go ahead and make it right. In the sunshine, baby, make it right. Yeah. Go ahead and make it right there. Keep it right there.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
And we are back. We're back.
Issues That Matter.
I'm Calvin Lester, and that's Stephen Jackson, Carl Thomas,
The Heat.
Summer rain.
singing his latest hit off of Bad Boy Records, Summer Rain. Is that Bad Boy Records? Singing his latest hit. Okay.
Let it rain.
Yeah. Bad Boy Records. Yeah. Mr. Summer Rain himself. Mr. Please, Please, the hardest working man in show business.
Hey.
Hey, I got you.
Tickets $300 out.
Hey, so listen, we thank you for your kind attention. Again, like we said, this is Issues That Matter. This is 97.7 The Heat. If you want to chime in, we love to hear from you. So listen, our number is 318-779-0459. We got some background feed in the background. You're hearing an echo. Love to hear from you. Our number is 318-779-0459. We got some background. Yeah. There we go. So, again, if you want to chime in, our number is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459. Give us your thoughts about the prospects of President Harris, and what do you think about her potential running mates? I have seen a number of names that have been listed. First of all, why is a running mate important? The running mate is important because that person is a heartbeat away from the presidency. If something were to happen to the president, the vice president ideally needs to be someone who can step up and stand in, right? So that's that. And the vice presidential choice is the first major decision that a candidate makes. And it says a lot, usually, about what the candidate is thinking. In the case of Trump, he's thinking, I'm doubling down on the MAGA, so he goes and gets Mini-Me, right? What Vice President Harris has to do is let folks know what kind of president she's going to be, what her thoughts are in selecting a running mate. And so there are a number of names that have been floated out there. There you've got, if we try to use our geography, you've got United States Senator Mark Kelly, who is a senator from Arizona. You remember he is an astronaut. His wife was the Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, who was shot in the head, almost died in Arizona. He ran for the Senate and won. I think he replaced what's his name in the Senate, didn't he?
Yeah, he replaced can't remember the woman that he defeated. I can't remember her name.
Okay.
I
So
don't think he replaced McCain.
he
in the
didn't.
Senate.
You're right. He didn't. But I can't remember who the other senator was. But he
woman.
Yeah, and so he won that spot. Then you've got potentially the governor of Illinois, J.D. Pritzker. You've got the governor
Martha
of
McSally.
Okay,
Martha
thank you.
McSally, that's who he was.
Okay, you've got the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmire, who was a lot of people like as a presidential candidate herself. Is I'm told being vetted. I'm told that Governor Cooper, who is the governor of North Carolina, is being vetted. I've heard that the governor of Minnesota, whose name escapes me right now, he's being vetted. I've also heard, now my personal choice is Governor Shapiro, who is from Pennsylvania. I'll tell you why in a minute, is being vetted. I've heard media reports that former Congressman Cedric Richmond is being vetted. I don't know that that's necessarily, a thing, but I've heard.
The vice presidential candidate is going to be a white male.
Yeah. So, I think there's some politics behind that. Doesn't offend me. I have tremendous respect for the former congressman. Would love to see him be governor or mayor of New Orleans, but that's a whole nother story. And then I think I'm missing. Isn't there another senator that they're talking about?
I mean, man, names from Pete Buttigieg and all this.
Yeah.
Look, I think the person it's gonna be a white male.
Right.
Okay.
For obvious reasons. Well, no, let's not say for obvious reasons.
Well,
Let's
we
talk
keep
about
it real.
it.
We keep
Let's
it
keep
real
it
on
real.
this show.
We keep it real on the show.
It's likely going to be a white male, and the politics
Because
right, and we give you the because.
right.
We just talked about the dumbest decision. I think President Trump made a very dumb decision by picking. I think I'm not gonna use the word dumb. Dumb is
Ill-advised.
It was ill-advised. It was not strategic. Your vice presidential candidate should provide balance.
Right.
And you should be, the vice president should be, okay, this person is presidential, they
Right.
compliment the president,
Right.
but we know that this faction of the party may
Right.
feel a little alienated,
Right.
so we can always dispatch this person
Right.
to
Y'all have a seat at the table.
Right.
Y'all don't get the big piece of chicken.
right. That's what modern day vice presidents do.
Yes. Yes.
That's what they do.
Whatever. I mean, just look at going back in history.
Lyndon Johnson,
Lyndon Johnson,
he was vice president for
Kennedy,
because
the Austin,
South.
Boston. Right.
The South.
Yes.
We needed the South.
Right.
Kennedy was a
Northeast liberal.
Northeast liberal and
Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic.
They didn't believe in that.
How do we balance them out?
Right.
We give them a good Southern senator.
With the grits.
Okay.
Or as
All right.
Jesse Jackson say, the grits and gravy, folks.
All right.
Yeah.
George H.W. Bush,
Yep.
his vice president, Dan Quayle,
Yep.
he was meant to go up to the north.
Midwestern.
Midwestern guy.
Younger Midwestern.
Young Midwestern guy, nice, likable.
Mm-hmm.
Al Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Clinton was, they was worried that he was going to be all over the place.
Right.
And so we need this good
Christian.
Mormon-like.
That's right. Very boring, but solid as a rock.
Right. The scientist
Mhm.
type Al Gore.
Right. And
Policy.
a lot of people criticize that because they were both Southerners.
Right. But
Of course, that was the last time
right.
the Democrats won significantly in the South.
Right. But he balanced
Yes.
Bill Clinton out.
Go ahead. What's his name? Lieberman
Lieberman
from Connecticut.
from Connecticut.
Gotcha.
George W. Bush had Dick Cheney, too young.
Right.
Bush was too young,
Right.
inexperienced. Yeah, we knew he grew up in the White House.
Right.
But this
But
wild
he was
cat,
rambunctious.
he was rambunctious.
That's
and
right.
We need somebody to
Sell
tone
him
this buck
down.
down.
That's right.
Dick Cheney,
Dick Cheney.
Barack Obama,
Right.
same thing.
Right.
Young, charismatic man.
Who
he
was
looked
his
good.
Thundercat?
Who was this Thundercat?
Slow that down.
Slow him down. Get him somebody. He only been here
Right.
for 5 minutes.
Right.
So we're gonna give him Joe Biden.
Right.
And Joe will
Moderate.
moderate him, give
Slow
him
it down.
His, particularly in the area of foreign affairs, he's gonna give him some chops in
That's
foreign
right.
affairs because that's what Biden's thing was.
Right.
Trump,
Right.
first term
Right.
again, he a Thundercat.
Right. Wild as all outdoors.
We know it.
Right.
Coming in and shaking and rocking and
Yay.
you know,
Kicking stuff over.
right, kicking stuff over.
Let's go get Mike Pence.
Let's go get
Good
Mike,
Christian man.
good Christian man,
Evangelical.
evangelical.
We gonna do the right
We're
thing.
gonna do the right thing.
We know we crazy.
Democracy is on the line.
Yeah. We gonna talk
We're
to
gonna
him.
talk freedom.
Yeah.
We're gonna fall on
Mhm.
America first.
Yeah.
God, country,
Apple
patriots,
pie.
and apple pie.
Yes.
And, yes.
And it worked.
And it worked.
Not this time.
Joe Biden,
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Hey.
Black women.
Hey.
How did you pull the black female? Joe Biden knew he had to pull. Joe Biden's strength was in
Yes.
older white males.
Right.
Older white males
Yes.
flocked to Joe Biden because
The quote unquote Reagan Democrats.
right, the Reagan Democrat, he's not a threat.
Right.
We feel comfortable in the room with
Right.
him, you know. But
However,
the black people like
I Reagan. Don't tell me Reagan.
Right.
I ain't.
You know.
I ain't with Reagan.
so Kamala Harris,
Right.
and it's worked well.
Yes.
Fast forward to this year,
Hey.
Trump
Yes.
picks J.D. Vance.
Who
And
is
I
a
think
clone?
It's a clone of him, and I think it's gonna to me. I think it's gonna prove to be a strategic mistake.
Right.
And as we discussed yesterday, I think that's why they ultimately mad
Right.
because now they can't go back.
They locked into it.
They married to him.
No, I think if they were smart, first of all, there was no way in West, North, or South Hill they would have brought Nikki Haley. That would have made too much sense, and Trump's ego wouldn't have allowed that.
Right.
The move that they should have made was find one of those sycophant suck-ups like Tim Scott. Of course, you know the Republicans were not going to put anybody black up there.
Right.
Not
Go Rubio.
Well, you can't do Rubio because of the 12th Amendment thing. Two people from the same state.
Oh, Trump is. I keep
Yes.
putting him in New
Yeah,
York. I keep putting him in New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now he would have had. Now if Trump goes and changes his residence to New York,
Yeah, I keep.
Yeah.
But he is Florida.
right?
Well, but I mean, like a Marco Rubio,
Yeah. I mean, you could have gotten. I mean, it's any number of them clowns walking around Congress.
Yeah.
You know, that would have done. You know,
Yeah.
done whatever.
Yeah.
And you would have been in there like swimwear. But the problem is that the party and the Republican Party is completely dominated by the MAGA, the Trump folks.
Right.
So there are so few people that the George Bushes
Right.
and those people feel comfortable with. You know, he's alienated and basically run all of them off.
Mitt
So-
Romney, you count Mitt Romney out, count
Right.
Liz Cheney out,
Yep.
count George Bush out,
Yep.
count Chris Christie
Yep.
out. I mean,
I mean, and so Nikki Haley showed you that literally 1/3 of your vote is saying, I'm not messing with this guy.
right.
So, he would have done well to pull somebody like that, or someone who had a profile that's not as loud.
Right.
Speaking of loud, here's one of the things I want to address that I've seen. You know, people on this whole, well, we ain't seen Kamala all this time. Not sure, dude. The job as vice president is to be heard from time to time, not really seen, because it's the president.
Right.
This ain't the church where you have a pastor and co-pastor.
Right.
Right? There is one leader of the free world.
Right.
There's one president at a time. The vice president does what the president assigns them. Right. They move around. And in the last couple of years, she's done, I think, an excellent job of moving around.
Yeah.
You know, she was at Essence. She was at
Second
a
year in
number.
a row.
Yeah, she's at a number of events. She's gone to some HBCU things. My son graduated. Y'all heard me talk about that. I'm very proud of that. They did the tape at all of the HBCU graduations this year. So I mean, she's doing the things that she's supposed to as a vice president. Number 2, it's always Batman and Robin, not Robin and Batman, right? So you got to know your role.
You're not probably people who out there running their mouth, probably people who ain't never been elected to nothing.
Well,
right?
there you go.
Okay.
But that's the job. And now that she has to step up, she has grown into the position. She's much more polished than she was, less raw. I think she's always been a good speaker. And I think she's ready, and that's what we have. And so now what we're watching is, how is she going to balance herself? So going back to your point, the reality of it is you're going to have excitement among African Americans, right? But you've got to balance that, because you're going to need some of those white Democrat, white union folks, gray haired guys that want to be for you, but they got to feel like they have a place at the table. So it makes no sense to do Gretchen Whitmire, because you're not gonna have 2 women on the ticket.
And let's be honest.
Let's call a thing a thing. Right.
Let's call it, keep it 1,000. White men have a problem coming and ingratiating themselves to black men and black women,
right?
But particularly a black woman,
right.
And so there are some areas where you're gonna have to make sure that she can make these guys. And look, she can do it. Kamala Harris don't have to do nothing.
Right.
They just don't feel comfortable.
Right.
Because
it's generational.
All their lives.
Right.
It's been their club. And again, we're not calling anybody racist. We're not saying they're racist for it. It's just how they were raised.
Right.
So
you gotta make that adjustment.
You're gonna have to make that adjustment. Yes. And so that's why I'm a fan of Shapiro.
Yes.
He's young.
Yes.
He looks good.
Yes. Born in the Midwest.
And Pennsylvania.
State you gotta have.
That we will not get the White House without Pennsylvania.
Gotta have
this
it.
race
Gotta
is
have
about
it.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's the 3 states.
In that order.
Yeah. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
And I think
that's why she went to Wisconsin today.
Correct. Which shows me that they know that.
Right.
And they're running a smart race.
You're not gonna get there without Pennsylvania,
right,
Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Yes. So like I said, I'm excited. I think Shapiro will be a great choice. Again, he's a year younger than me. He's 51. I'm sorry. Yeah, he'll be 52 this year. So I think he's a great choice. Was an attorney general, was state rep, elections board, attorney general.
He's got some chops.
He's been around.
They're gonna need somebody to go in there and be just as aggressive with Vance.
Correct. And prosecute the case against Trump. And not fall for the okie doke. And I think he's that guy. And again, bringing a state with you is what you need to do.
That's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game. You got to have somebody.
Vance from
Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio is a player, but I think they've kind of conceded Ohio to the Republicans.
Right.
And so it's typically a player, but it's not a player if we can get Michigan,
right, and
Pennsylvania. Yeah,
we get those 3. It's a different race. I mean, it's a win.
It's a win.
A Republican has never won the White House without Ohio. Democrats have never won without Michigan and Pennsylvania, and to a certain extent, Wisconsin. But for those 3, the way the map runs, because you're going to get California, you're going to get New York, you're not going to get Texas, you're not going to get Florida.
Right.
I think Kamala Harris is going to put Georgia in play.
Georgia's going to be one of them toss-ups.
But it wasn't.
It's going to go down to the wire.
Yeah.
I think my concern about Georgia is they have gone in and they've done these crazy election laws.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there was an injunction placed. I think somebody was saying that in some areas the federal courts was halting some of these egregious election laws that they were putting in. I don't know if Georgia was one.
Right.
Hopefully they are, because some of the stuff that they put in place is going to make it very, very hard.
Right.
But look, I think it puts them in place.
Right. We got to call it. All right. Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm fine. How are you guys?
We're
Great.
great. What's your comment or your question?
I was listening to you guys talk about the vice president picking for the November election,
Right.
and I was told that Andy Bashir is a pretty good guy too. I hear that he does very well in Kentucky. Not sure about him because I haven't researched him myself, but I do hear that he works for all people.
Yeah,
So
I think Andy Bashir is great. I think he's doing a great job.
Yes.
I think the problem is Kentucky is this right now is about how can Democrats win, and
Right.
so they've pretty much ridden Kentucky off to the Republicans.
Right.
So you're not going to see much of a ground game go to Kentucky.
Right.
You're not going to see much of a ground game for Kamala Harris come to Louisiana.
Right.
Or Mississippi. You won't see that or Arkansas. And,
Right.
and it takes us to talk about how the South was punished as a result of succeeding from the Union.
Right.
And so the punishment
Right.
from succeeding from the Union, we got less electoral college votes.
Right.
And so you may see a blood red map with just a few blue, and that blue will still put them over the top
Right.
because the South is being still penalized from being the succession from the
Right.
from the Union during the Civil War. But Bashir is not a bad. I think he may look for some place in the administration.
Mhm.
But I don't know about putting on the ticket from a sure fact of they're looking at battleground states right now.
I mean, it's the same thing. Al Gore ran for president from Tennessee, multi-generational, and didn't win his own state.
Win Tennessee.
I mean, so
Yeah,
I-
they're not
do I-
gonna do that.
yeah. Do I think Bashir has a great profile? Yes, he
Yes.
does. You're not gonna win Kentucky, so it doesn't matter.
Not in a presidential
Nah,
race.
nah.
Not
Now-
yeah.
Andy Bashir is one of those Democrats who can win in the South.
Right.
And if we maybe 10 years from now, if we have expanded some things, then yeah, it's the same thing with John Bell. Somebody was like, "Why don't you pick John Bell?" It's like,
Same. Yeah.
I love John Bell,
Right.
but John Bell is not pro-choice, so that's going to be a conflict.
Second Amendment.
And Second Amendment, and he's not going to win Louisiana. So you got to bring somebody to the
In
party
a presidential
in a presidential race
In a presidential race.
that can expand the map and or win you a state. That's why I like Shapiro more than Cooper, because I think Cooper has done a heck of a job in North Carolina. However, North Carolina is a toss-up, and in North Carolina, the problem with the southern states, to Stephen's point, when Obama won and the Republicans wind up getting control of those legislatures, they went in and said, we'll never have that happen to us again. And so because we have not passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and those protections, they have gone back and just made it impossible to vote. So it's harder for our voters to vote, and so they get more seats and they do more damage. So that's why you want to go to a place like Pennsylvania, who does not have that system of draconian measures against people of color. If he can win, then we can then keep the Congress and then pass some of these laws to undo that. But
okay, and my next comment question is, you're talking about voters who want to vote, who may be independent voters or whatever. I've been speaking to some of the young black males, and a lot of them, well, several of them, they are Trump supporters. And one is because he says he's a business owner, and Trump brings the money to businesses because he's a businessman. They forget about what he's done in the past, just January 6th.
Yeah.
And I can understand, how they are Trump supporters simply because of that.
Well,
I
when you're talking to those young men, I just want you to ask them one question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And don't prep them. I just want you to ask them after they finish talking. I just want you to just say, "Now, what day is election day?" And I bet they can't. I promise they can't tell you what day is election day. I bet they. Saturday. It's that Saturday. I bet they're gonna hit you with it's Saturday. Well, I want you to do this exercise for me. The next
But let me
time
tell
you're talking to
some
one
of
of
these
them,
guys are very smart. They're like engineers and everything. I'm telling you.
oh, I
We
imagine.
need to, and then I'm gonna say this to you. I think maybe the next show you guys could bring in some policies that Joe Biden, fought for, the administration, and they were able to bring like infrastructure because they don't get it. And Project 2025, they need to know how that will impact their future.
And you're right. I had this conversation at one of the establishments that I frequent for my beverages and my smokes. And there were a couple of younger brothers that were in that, well, I don't care about none of that. I made money under him. That's where I'm going. And I systematically said, okay, tell me which policy that he specifically did that made you money. And they didn't have it. But then I went down a list of the policies that were against our people and against their financial interests. I reminded him that, y'all said y'all got that stimmy from him and he gave you a check, but Uncle
die to get that.
Right. But I was like, Uncle Joe brought the bread, the earned income tax credit that people got for all of that period of time. A lot of people got a major student loan relief. Black unemployment is the lowest in the history of the Republic. Black investment is some of at the highest it has ever been.
Black judgeships.
Right. So it's like, the economy is tough now because we're coming out of a pandemic. And mind you, the economy of the United States is the best economy on the planet. Does inflation need to come down? Yes, they're working on that. But for you to be a single issue voter and say, well, as long as I got my $5 versus $10, I'm willing to let the government decide what happens to my wife and my mom and my sister. I'm not concerned about my voting rights. As long as I can buy this grill and do whatever, that's what it's about. It's like, no, you've got to be more than one issue. And I sat down and we walked through all of those things. And so there are going to be some people that say that. But at the end of the day, what we have to do is, to your point, give them the information and just get the people who are going to support us. We got to get them to the polls, because a lot of those guys in the barbershop will have you telling, I'm not going to do this. I'm voting for Trump. And we're not giving away the game.
They think the election is on Saturday.
Well, here's where I'm going. When you look up their voting record, they're not chronic voters.
Right.
They don't really even vote themselves.
Yeah.
So
these guys do. They know.
Ma'am, you will be surprised.
I just would like
you will be surprised.
To just kind of bring that information to the next show, please.
Sure, we don't have a problem with that.
They're not getting it.
Yeah.
They're just not. And I'm kind of worried about, men, black young males. And I'm not saying vote Kamala Harris because she's black, but I'm saying
vote for your economic interests and your political interests and your community's interests. You're right. Well,
and
listen.
That's all.
No, and listen, we thank you for that
so
comment.
much. Thank you.
And we will heed your advice, and in the future, before the election, we will get some people to give some information, and we may even be able to get one of the campaign regional coordinators in here to call in to talk some specifics about why people should support the Harris team. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You have a great evening. So, Steve, anything else you want to say in closing?
Let me just make it a quick announcement.
Okay.
We've got an event that's coming up on Thursday. I'll be joining my colleagues, members of the legislative delegation, 6 p.m. July 25th. That's this Thursday at the Louisiana State Exhibit, 3015 Greenwood Road, Shreveport, Louisiana. We'll be giving a session update. We're doing this in conjunction with the National Panhellenic Council from Shreveport and the Power Coalition. And so this will be an opportunity where myself, Representative Jenkins, Representative Walters, will be on hand to give out information and just give the community. A lot of people say they're not aware of what's going on and coming out of Baton Rouge. This will be an opportunity for you to get that information. So again, this Thursday, July 25th, 6 p.m. At the State Museum, Louisiana State Exhibit Museum. We want to encourage you to come out. We'll have a lot of information that you can use. That's 3015 Greenwood Road, 6 p.m. July 25th.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So, well,
Thanks always.
yes, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind attention. Thank you for your questions and your thoughtful participation. This has been Issues That Matter. This is 97.7 The Heat, WKSH. We play what we want to play and say what we want to say. Stay tuned. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you Thursday.
Summer breeze all in my mind. Summer breeze all in my mind. No, 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 no. It's all in my mind. No, 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 no. It's all in my mind. Summer breeze makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind. Oh, summer breeze makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind, all in my mind. See the curtains hanging in the window in the evening on a Friday night. A little light shining through the window lets me know everything's alright. Oh, summer breeze, you make me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind. Oh, summer breeze makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind. Sweet days of summer, the jasmine's in bloom. July is dressed up and playing a tune. When I come home from a hard day's work and you're waiting there, not a care in the world. See the smile waiting in the kitchen, food cooking on a plate for two. Feel the arms reaching out to hold me in the evening when the day is through.